Okay, Dad, started putting together the gearbox for the midget. First things first is you measure the amount of infloat in the lay gear. So I've got the lay gear in there. I got a thrust washer on either end. Basically pry it over a little bit, and then you just see how much space you got here. So I've got about 11 thou of space there. So I'll go back and look. Can't quite remember off the top of my head what that ought to be. I think it should be a little smaller than that. Which case I'll have to measure up these thrust washers they're used and purchase one that will close the gap to what it needs to be. First step first. All right, Dad, back to the gearbox. Got some new parts here. These are a new set of Bach rings or synchro rings. The key, there's a cone on this input shaft, or first motion shaft, the MG folks call it. You can see it's not bad shape there. There's a coating on there. It's pretty much intact all the way around. If I put one of the old Bach rings on here and put one of these old ones on here, and then you can measure right in here with a feeler gauge how much space there is, how much movement there is. Essentially, before it, if it bottoms out, if this thing bottoms out at the bottom of these dog teeth section here, then there's no way for it to engage. So you want that to be at least 30 thou. These are all under that, under 25, somewhere between 20 and 25 thou. So none of these are worth it anymore. But if you put one of the new ones on, then you pick up it's north of 40 thou. So I have plenty of meat left in here on the input shaft. And one came out to play. You can see I got, I'd say this is a 40 thou feeler here. I got lots and lots of wear left there. So that third gear is in great shape. So I'm planning on using that one. This one's in very nice shape. You can see he even has edges and bevels, and that one's ready to go. So overall, I'm gonna start, now that I've made these measurements and everything looks okay. A while back, it's months now, but I had shown you my input shaft that I had, and or my main shaft, and you can see there, and you can also see there, there's a lot of wear there. There's a groove, and it's like it went dry. So I picked one up on eBay, and this one is in much nicer shape. So I'll clean that up and get that pulled together for this rebuild. Okay, Dad. These are the bits and pieces I got from Peter May Engineering in the UK. Main shaft bearings, I think that's the input shaft bearing, and these are for the lay gear, lay shaft, and this is the lay shaft. There's two different main shaft bearings, and when you buy them, I was confused for a little while. You get the same, here, let's see, I think you can read that one better. You get the same bearing, even though they're supposed to be different. The reason, of course, is that the original bearing for the main shaft had an inner race that was extended out, that was basically thicker than the outer race. and those are no longer available. So you end up getting this main shaft bearing that just has some spacers to make up that difference of what you need here for the inner race. So in any case, that's does now make sense to me. The lay shaft is looks nice, obviously. One of the things that's different about it, it's hardened, of course, just like the other one, but there's a weakness in the original style of the lay shaft, is that there's an oiling hole here, and that's where things rip. And so gearboxes go bad there. So these ones here don't have that. I think unless you were going to do some really long-term cruising or something, this is more than good enough. So, okay, we've got new balk rings, pivot bushing, and pivot pin for the clutch release bearing. I also got a roller bearing for that to replace the carbon graphite release bearing that comes on the 4-speed Midget. So anyways, those parts are here, and I'm now just starting to measure things up. All right, Dad, I'm just about ready to start putting this gearbox together. So the first thing I did was to polish up these bearing surfaces. I started off with just red Scotch-Brite, worked my way up to 2500, so it didn't take very long to do that. And you can see that those are now nice and clean. It's much smoother. Hopefully that will make it a little less noisy. Okay, Dad, starting to put the gear set together. Got second gear on just fine. This is third gear. You can see there's 26 raw bearings in there. This slides right in. There's a little pin here with a spring in it. And I need to put on the locking ring. The locking ring fits right over top of there. Drops in. And then I need to get a thin little skinny screwdriver, push that pin in. There's a spring, it's spring loaded inside. And when I get that just far enough, then it'll click into place. And then I'll be able to then rotate this and have it lock into place. But it's a bit of a pain to try to get that pin compressed. You need to just something thin that'll just fit in there, and you just catch the corner of that pin. And so on the Triumph gearbox, it was the circlip from hell. This is the same version, another circle here. But I'll get it, and then I'll have second and third sorted and ready to go forward. Then I'll flip it around and start assembling the rest of it. Okay, got it on the next try. I don't think it's a little bit hard to see, but there's the pin right there. So as soon as you can get this thing in that pin depressed enough, then you can get this spacer, thrust bearing, locking ring, just engage, and then you can tap it down, and then you rotate it so that it then pops out in the space in between the teeth, the cogs of this thrust, and so then you can lock the whole assembly. So now there's a similar one on the second gear side. It's got 2 pins instead, but the same idea. You squeeze that in there and slide it underneath. So there we go. Second, third gear. Time to regroup, put the rest together. All right, Dad. Got the rest of the main shaft put together. First, second hub, third, fourth hub. Everything looks good. All lines. This is the input shaft here. Just got that slid in there. I need to take that apart, replace that bearing, but everything else is coming together pretty nicely, so happy so far. All right, Dad, there's the main shaft assembly all done. I had originally gotten this bearing on, but not not the case on it. And then of course I tested to see whether the first, second synchro would work. And as soon as I did that, the balls and springs went everywhere. And so I'm still down 3 balls. I found the springs. But in any case, you can't really get underneath this bearing, so you have to pull it off from the outer race. And so the new bearing was ruined in that process. So it turned out I actually have this old bearing that was still in the case. And this is the very old style where the inner race is actually thicker than the outer, the inner race is thicker than the outer race. So you don't need the spacers. So I put this together by just sticking the main shaft in the freezer. You can see a little frost on there. Warm this up a little bit. This slides right in. And now it just needs to slowly warm up and do its thing. This time I will test this first, second gear slider in a plastic bag to see if I can keep the balls from flying. They shouldn't come out if everything has been sorted properly. So, and I think it has. So, but I will double check before I go to the next stage, which is to sort of tighten up. Up here, there's a spacer, then the worm gear for the speedometer, and then you tighten it all in. But I'll wait till it warms up before I do that. So anyways, a little bit more progress. Howdy, Dad. Time to start putting some gears in here. First thing that goes in is this reverse idler gear. This has a short shaft. It's got a pinhole in at the end of that shaft, and so you tap that in and line that hole with this pass through here, and then you fit in one of these pin type screws, and it goes in here, captures that hole, and holds the shaft where it needs to be. I did a little bit of polishing on that shaft, and took a little finessing to be able to get it in and out of there easily, or not easily, but so I could just get it in snugly. But that looks okay, and I'll start moving on to the next things. All right, Dad, I decided time to start moving things along to get this input shaft in. I ended up just putting this thing into the freezer. Let it sit in the freezer overnight. I just warmed this up with the heat gun, the casing, and it just slips right in, not a problem. And then you push, it has to come in actually from the gearbox side, not from this side. So it comes in this part first, and then you pull it out far enough. Then you can get this outer race stop. You know, it's got this gear has a ring around that, and so that you can locate that gear flush against the case. So heat and cool together. I didn't have to put any force on it, and so it all worked out just great. So it turns really nicely, and this is that old gear with no, this is a new gear, yeah, right. So anyways, all working good. Here's the main assembly. You know, this turned out just quite a Frankenstein here. So first gear I got from a local guy. Second gear I bought, I think I bought that from the same guy. Third gear I got new old stock on eBay. The input shaft came from a local guy. A leg gear came from the guy who sold me the first gear. You know, so it's just sort of part of the adventure of finding all the pieces that go together. So I'm kind of sort of keen to get this loaded into the box, make sure everything is meshing properly. There's a number of different gear sets over the years. They're not compatible with each other, so it's important that everything matches up just right. So This is the late gear set for the 1275 Ribcase gearbox. So here we go. Going to start putting this together and see if everything goes according to plan. I ended up, on this main shaft, you put the spacer in, then the worm gear, then you torque that thing down. It's a 1 5/16 inch nut. And that wrench set that you gave me years and years and years ago stops at 1 1/4. So I ended up having a hard time trying to figure out how to do this. In the end, what I ended up doing was to put this nut into the vise as tight as I could. Then I used a splined bit here from the drive shaft, and then I just put in a bar through here, and I basically cranked it until I couldn't crank it anymore. So I think you're supposed to get about 80 to 100 foot-pounds on there. I'm probably close to 80. So knock the ear back, ready to go forward. I'm ready to start fitting this. So at the end of this is the 3rd, 4th synchro hub. There's a synchro in here. This slides in. There's another synchro here. Okay, that engages the input shaft or 4th gear. Spigot bearing. Then this slides in here. One of the things that you have to pay attention to is down in here, the 4th idler gear. You can see it actually kind of protrudes into here. And so you can see that there. So you can't, you have to make sure that everything works okay here. And so on the rear casing, or on this bearing housing, there is a relief cut right in here that allows you to clear that reverse gear. So you have to align this relief with this that gear. And so I've got it marked, little red marks in here to where the relief needs to align, and then I have the relief marked here as well. So when I slide this in, then I just need to make sure that these align so that there's no fouling between this reverse gear and the bearing housing. So on we go. All right, I've got the main shaft bearing housing sort of sitting in the opening. It's mostly aligned here, of course, where the reverse idler gear relief is. So that's sort of ready. I'm ready, gonna just use a brass hammer and just knock that down a little bit, get it in there, try to seat it, make sure all the gears stay free when it does that, and then it'll be time to then do some shimming of these covers. All right, that looks like I got a gear set that functions just fine. Nice, and it's pretty quiet. I can shift all the gears. Everything stays aligned. The bearings aren't shimmed yet, so I'm not going to mess around with it too much. But I just wanted to get some oil on the gears and down into these drain holes to get into the needle bearings. There's grease in there, of course, but I want to just get some oil in there. I'm getting close. I think I'll be going back to the UK maybe tomorrow. And so I'm going to try to finish it, get as far as I can, and send you a video before that happens. But I think this looks pretty good right now. So, all right, so the interlock between reverse, which is this shaft, 1st and 2nd, is a half pin that goes right between these two. So if this if reverse is not engaged, then you can move first and second. If reverse is engaged, then it's locked out. And so there's a detent and a system in there. So that's reverse, first, second. All right, so the detent for first, second, and reverse, or the lockout, is the bullet that goes through here. The lockout for third, fourth, and reverse is a ball that sits between those two shafts. And then, so those are the two lockout features. There's a half bullet that comes in right here. That half bullet comes in the back side of the reverse shaft, acts as a detent for a good stopping place for the gear. So I think I've gotten that mostly sorted in my head. All right, Dad, I've put in here with the front cover. It's just snugged on. I have a gasket in there, but it's not sealed because I'm probably going to take it off. Nick's going to machine me one of these front covers that has a lip seal, a rubber lips oil seal. So this is just a scroll seal in here. So I'm going to upgrade a little bit, but I need to wait on Nick for that. But that's in. The box is ready to be buttoned up. The last two things that go into here are two bullets for the detents on the first, second, third, fourth shafts. They have their springs that go in here. So this gasket is just sitting here drying. I'll put that on, flip it over and tighten it up, and that will be it for a little while. So I'll put the gearbox away and come back to it when I come back from Oxford. And so for now, I'm going to call this project done. It's and very nice gearbox. It's very tight, very smooth, very quiet. And so I'm pleased with how that's turned out so far. Anyways, we'll keep waiting to see how the rest of it goes, but you'll have to wait at least a month or so before I start putting the tailstock on and send you the final updates on this gearbox rebuild. Take care, Dad. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.